Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi there, friend. Just your friend Carmen here to remind you, or just to inform you, that a lot of the information and tips that I give do come from my membership and what I learn in my group coaching program, Focused, by Kristen Carter of the I Have ADHD podcast. If you use the link in my show notes, we both save money. Because, who doesn't need to save money, especially when we're trying to help ourselves? It's helped me improve in so many ways. So if you can afford it, go check it out and check out her free content because it is amazing. All right, back to the show. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. Before I get started, I really want to thank each and every one of you that follow, share, and support this podcast. It means so much to me, especially if you are learning about yourself and growing. I am elated. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Today, and we are talking about the strengths ADHDers can have and how we can cultivate strengths within ourselves even when we have ADHD. It's so important to recognize and embrace your strengths, especially being neurodiverse. We tend to focus on the negative, so we lean towards rumination. And when I'm stuck in these negative loops, I like to pull myself out by writing down and writing about my strengths. It helps us because we often feel rejected, wrong, and misunderstood a lot of the time. We want to shift the mindset and repetitive narrative from deficits to assets. Being able to pause, sit down, and think about or write or draw your strengths is a powerful and incredibly useful tool. We also want to make sure we don't get stuck in the pit of despair. Now, there is a disclaimer on this episode that I want to make clear before we get started. I do not believe that ADHD is a superpower. This episode is about natural strengths we have as humans, not some kind of superpower because we have ADHD. Now that I've made that clear, I do want to point out that as ADHDers, we do have brains that are different. We have a more neurodiverse type of mind than our typically developing peers. Because of their thinking patterns, they developed differently than ours. Ours developed more in a neurodivergent way, while theirs developed in a more divergent way. The difference between the two is that neurodivergent thinking includes a little more creativity and connecting ideas in ways that others don't typically think of. Divergent thinking is using known solutions to solve a problem. This is why neurodiverse individuals have a more out-of-the-box thinking and out-of-the-box ideas and out-of-the-box thinking patterns. Again, to make this clear, this is stronger in some than in others, so it applies on a spectrum, just like the spectrum of neurodivergence. So let's unpack how we can notice and cultivate these traits that show up in our lives as strengths. Although I stated and believe that ADHD is not a superpower, it does favor some specific strengths, being that we are innovative thinkers. Some of us can harness hyperfocus, and some of us are really good in a crisis. I've experienced these things being strengths without even knowing. I didn't really even know, but I'm really good in a crisis, and I am an out-of-the-box thinker. This is not the same for all ADHDers. We do have to cultivate strengths by practicing the things that we are already naturally good at, just like anyone else. You have to deep dive into your self-awareness, recognize your strengths, and then use them, and practice improving them and using them to your advantage. Now, because we have ADHD, it is really hard to sit down and think about what we're good at. And it's because we get so much feedback that we are bad at so many things. So I created a little follow-along guide to use while I go through some strengths that people with ADHD tend to have naturally that can be improved and optimized with practice and harnessing the strength. One of the hardest things about doing this practice is the lack of self-awareness and negativity and self-image. So, in order to have the ability to shift your mindset, this is a very, very powerful skill. And it does take a lot of practice. So I'm going to go through some strengths that people with ADHD tend to have and strengths that I relate to in hopes that you can relate to one or more of them and help you start focusing on your strengths in order to help you thrive. So some strengths that people with ADHD tend to have include creativity. ADHD brains can think outside the box, making connections that others might miss. This leads to innovative ideas and creative problem solving. Number 2, hyperfocus. When we are deeply interested, and that's the key, we need to be deeply interested. People with ADHD can concentrate intensely for extended periods of time, producing high quality work in areas that we're passionate about. Now, this one is one that's kind of contradictory to some of the things that ADHDers have, and that's adaptability, being able to navigate various challenges. People with ADHD, we can quickly adjust to new situations or changes, but sometimes if we have very low cognitive flexibility, this could be a weakness for somebody and not a strength. This is what I mean by ADHD not being a superpower, and that it is just strengths that some people naturally have. That is also strength, like other things that people may view as something that they're not good at. Like the next one, being energetic. Not all people with ADHD have high energy levels that can be channeled into tasks, making them driven and enthusiastic workers. Not everybody has that. Now, the next one tends to run in a lot of ADHDers, and it's empathy. Many people with ADHD are highly attuned to the emotions of others, making them great listeners and compassionate friends and colleagues. The next one is curiosity. ADHD minds are naturally curious, leading them to explore a wide range of interests and gain knowledge in diverse areas. Number 8, risk-taking, aka impulsivity. The willingness to try new things and take risks can lead to breakthrough opportunities, both in our personal and professional lives. Safe impulsivity can benefit us. We also have big picture thinking. ADHD brains often see the broad scope of projects. We see the broad scope but not the small details, but this allows us to strategize in ways that others may not be able to. We have a strong sense of problem solving and justice. Because we often face unique challenges, people with ADHD develop creative problem-solving skills and a sense of strong justice, both to navigate small and large issues. The next one is optimism. Despite setbacks, many people with ADHD maintain a positive outlook, always hoping for the best and staying resilient. That goes right along with the next one, which is resilience. Due to frequently facing and overcoming obstacles, people with ADHD build strong perseverance and resilience, bouncing back pretty quickly from failures. Again, these are all things that we do need to practice. And before you can even have strengths as an ADHDer, you need to learn how to leverage those strengths. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD journal and planner, which I've been using for the past year that has worked. Nothing is priced over $10 and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it to bind it and sent to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there. In order to harness your strengths, you have to develop self-awareness and acceptance. We need to be aware of our strengths before we can use them. And self-awareness is the first step. So this is something that doesn't apply to ADHDers. Again, before we can use the strengths, we have to be aware of them. We have to have things that we love about ourselves, which does require a certain level of self-awareness and self-acceptance. In, some ways to build on these strengths is to incorporate them into your daily life in order to improve. But again, if you can't find the strengths in your life, I invite you to do a little more deep diving on yourself and your self-love and the acceptance of self. Find the tasks and environments that play to your strengths. So here's a way that my job plays to my strengths. I'm an early childhood educator, right? It's a fast-paced job. I do well in chaos and fast-paced, and I handle crises pretty well. When you're teaching preschool, it's a pretty good skill to have. Okay, and now that my dog has thrown me totally off focus, one of the strengths that ADHDers also have is getting back on task after something like that happens. No, I'm kidding. This is something that's very hard for me, obviously. So anyways, I was talking about my job and how that really is great for me. When I'm lesson planning, that's another one. I can find one activity that matches 6 different growth areas, and that's amazing. It's a creative, out-of-the-box way to think. So I invite you to find tasks and environments that play to your strengths. I also challenge you to do something this week. 2 to 4 times this week, stop and record your wins. Whether you have 1, 5, 3, it really helps us focus on the positive and be in the present and learn and grow authentically. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend, share it on social media, and remember, our memories suck, so make sure you follow the podcast so you can get notified every time I drop an episode. If you're feeling extra generous, rate and review the podcast, because that gets it out to more people that can learn the most that they can learn about their ADHD. That's all I have for now. Stay authentic, and we will talk soon.